Welcome back to another video, Dreams. I still feel sick right now, so I'm not going to be able to really make a long video, but I don't really need to. I'm going to go ahead and just go over the beta details and whatnot. So the first wave of the beta codes have been sent out today. If you don't know, they sent it to Europe first before US and Canada for whatever reason, I don't know. But by the time you're watching this, you probably got your codes by now in US and Canada. If you didn't get your code, don't worry, you probably will get it on Monday. I don't know if they're going to send any more after that, but they did say that not everyone will get in, but they do have a lot of rooms, so you don't have to worry too much. And Media Monkey actually tweeted out a couple days ago that they're going to be at GDC and they're going to have another musical performance like they did last year on E3, which I can't wait for. It's going to be March 20th. I really can't wait to see what they do this time around this year. Now I'm going to show John giving tips on like the thermometer, which I feel like a lot of people need to know because it can really help with making like big environments and big worlds if you know how to use the thermometer right. And he goes over like some ways to use the trigger zone, and it's like basic stuff, but I feel like it's still useful for people who have no idea how to use anything about logic and whatnot. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
I'm going to do some tips and tricks based on things that I've been looking at on the forum that you've all asked. One question that comes up a lot, which I want to cover first, is about the thermometer. Because lots of people are making things and getting confused at why maybe they've used up so much of the thermometer or things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and sort of alleviate some of the mystery surrounding the thermometer, because it's unusual, and it's because we don't use polygons like most games. What you may think is simple, like a cube, is more expensive than you would expect it to be, yet something that you would expect to be really complex like a face is about as cheap as a cube in some cases. So yeah, you know, I'm going to try and wash some of the mystery away. So oops, I exited. Here we go. Okay, so what I want to...
Sorry, there's some confusion on the stream about if EU codes, like our first batch has gone out. Like we're not ignoring EU. Yeah. And there will be more going out on Monday.
Yeah. Okay, so the way I'm going to talk about this one is first I'm going to make a tiny thin bit of sculpt here, and I'm going to imagine this is a piece of paper. Whenever you sculpt anything in Dreams, imagine it's like you're painting on a 3D bit of paper, right? But to simplify the analogy, I'm going to make a 2D bit of paper here. Right. And when you first make something on your bit of paper, which is like the world canvas, this sort of 3D world, it sets the size of the bit of paper that you're working on. So if I put a cube here, the bit of paper would be something around about the size of this bit of paper in the background. This is the drawing on the bit of paper. But while people are in sculpt mode, so you can see I'm in sculpt mode because everything is grey, they start expanding it out, often with the stretch tool and things like that. So they stretch it over here. And what needs to happen in this case is that bit of paper needs to get bigger to accommodate it like this. Sure. So imagine each one of those bits of paper is like the cost of your sculpt, and so it's now cost like 4 times more than when you started. And you didn't realise, you were just like, I'm scaling it up. But if you're outside of it and you scale it up like this, it doesn't cost paper. What it actually does is it scales the paper up with you like this. So having it that big costs no more than having it that big. But if you're in sculpt mode and you start adding things like this, that's where the expense comes in. Right. But the cool thing is, don't worry, if you've made something like this and it's used like, you know, loads of bits of paper, or you think it may have, you know, like lots of paper around like this, we have something called the Sculpt Detail tool over here. And if you select that, it shows you what is expensive, color coding it between red and blue, and you can click on things to reduce how expensive they are. And what that actually does is, if we zoom in, you can see it's loosening it up. Now sometimes that's not good, you don't want it to be loose, sometimes you want it to be tight, but it often depends at how far you're going to look at it. So if you're only ever going to see it from here, like loosen it up from the point of view that you're going to look at it from, you know, and you may not see the difference. And that's already like saved you loads and loads of space on your thermometer. And that's one way of saving space. The thermometer is actually made up of lots of things, but just remember that if you're making it bigger in sculpt mode, that's costing you more than if you make it bigger just by scaling it up. Right.
Amazing.
The next thing, which I see people do as well, which ends up costing them a lot, is they make something, say like a picture frame and a picture. what they'll do is they'll sculpt. This is I'm going to make the most expensive way I can think of making a picture.
Okay.
So you will start with a small cube like this. Then it will get stretched, and as we just discussed, that's now costing way more than you would expect.
Yeah, I'm realizing how much my sculpt earlier cost now.
Then what they'll do is they'll start a new sculpt like this, and they will do the same thing. And because these are unique sculpts, that's where a lot of the cost comes in. You see it adding down to the thermometer here already. And they'll do that for each and every side. So let's do that. And now it's like already getting really expensive. And this just looks like 4 rectangles, or cuboids, so it shouldn't be expensive at all in your mind. But actually, because of the way the thermometer works, it is. And I'm going to show you how to make this really cheap in a second. Okay, and then we do one at the back. And then the last one, okay, let's go with the back of the frame, something like that. Okay, cool. And I've made like a picture frame, right?
Yeah.
Expensive. So a few ways we can make that cheaper. One is if you do want to make it out of individual parts, when you first do a cube, if you make it the sort of right size straight away, like that, which helps, or if when you make it big like that, instead of stretching it longer, instead like make it smaller. It's better to get smaller than get bigger because that's cheaper, right?
Yeah.
Then if you clone it, instead of having unique individual ones,
Right.
that's way cheaper. You probably can't get away with a unique one for the back here, so we'll have to go in and we can just modify that one. And that's already a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
But then if you want to make a really, really, really cheap one, what I tend to do is try and make things like this as one single sculpt. So all I do is make a shape like that, and then I will just cut out inside of it like that. And then that is like way
Can you bring the thermometer
cheaper.
up for this, or will it?
Yes. Where is the thermometer? Let's go to, no, I can't remember where it is now. There it is. So yeah, there's 19% already used, and you think, well, that's used loads of my level. The cool thing is that's not kind of 90. Like if I copy this, I'd only be able to copy it 10 times before the level ran out of space, and clearly I can copy it more than 10 times, and like it hasn't really added anything because we have lots of thermometers inside of thermometers. So this isn't always like how full your level is. It represents a whole load of different things. It's just trying to give you guidelines on what's the most expensive at the moment.
Cool.
But yeah, if you just make a single one like that,
you can see
now. Look at the thermometer. Graphics wise, it's gone right down because it's not super tight.
Right.
And then you can make absolutely loads of those, and we don't even get close to the graphics limit like we did before. So that's, I hope, alleviated some of the confusion and mystery of the thermometer. If you try and remember those tips, it will help you make your levels bigger and be more detailed. So, good luck with that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. There's a lot of people saying thank you.
That's okay. Okay. I also wanted to do some logic tips. How much time have we got actually, Costa? 5 to 6. Okay, so I'm going to do a few basic logic things that you people out there may not know or be aware of. Our logic is located here in gadgets, and there's a whole bunch of useful things. And I always find the most useful thing for me is the trigger zone. And you get that, you can stamp it into the level. And what this does is looks for things that go inside this area. You can tweak them by holding L1 and square on the DS4, or triangle and square on triangle on your offhand or your palette hand, and square on your main hand. That opens it up. And inside here we've got a whole bunch of options, and you can change the shape of the zone, which you can change also just by grabbing the outside of it. You can set it to be scene wide, so now it's just looking for everything inside the scene. You can even grab the zone and detach it from the gadget, because maybe you want your gadget living in a microchip somewhere.
What is the scene wide one useful for?
The scene, that looks for anything. So if anything exists in your level that trigger zone might look for, it will find it, instead of just the area that you see. So the scene is like anything at all. It's like looking for the entire world. So what we'll do is we'll put that back. You can reset things, by the way, to default with triangle, which is really useful. So if you've ever got anything and you're like, oh, I'm way away from the default, if you press triangle on anything, it will reset it back to default, which is it's super helpful. Okay, so in this case, what we're going to do is it's set to look for a control sensor, which is basically there's one in a puppet or like maybe in a vehicle or something you've made, which can get detected when they walk into this zone. So I'm just going to place down a tiny little sculpt so we can, because the trigger zone is invisible when you go into play mode.
How about a fork?
How about a fork?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Let's get a fork out. So
That
someone will notice.
You got spoon shamed.
Noticed that when I was eating cake when we announced the beta, that I was eating it with a spoon. I apologise profusely.
Both times as well.
Both times. I know, I didn't learn my lesson. So they were so outraged that they decided to make a fork, and it's actually a fork for me. It's called
John's fork.
John's fork.
I thought that it was someone called John. That just ran and he was like, this is my fork.
No, I think.
And then I reread the description.
Yeah, the description. Let's see. Look, here, where is it? Scroll across.
It's right there,
yeah.
I saw the beta announcement stream. John B ate a slice of cake with a spoon. I promise to make him a fork in here for better or worse.
So there we go. We got a fork. Okay, so this is going to designate where the trigger zone is. And now we want a character. So characters, if you're making a new one, exist in the gadgets as well. And they're over here. And we talked about those last week. I tend to use a deluxe one for most things because it has a load of awesome built-in features. And if I jump into play mode, you won't see anything happen yet, but we've got a character. And then if we walked over into this trigger zone and we pause time, we go back into edit mode, and we can tweak this. We can see it's been activated or not. As we leave in and out, we can go in and out of it. But we want to make it do something, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is, this is probably the most powerful thing I use it for, is to power keyframes. Because a keyframe can do a lot of things at the same time. So if you go up here to animate and go to keyframe and you put it down, it's a bit like a gadget, and a little record symbol comes up. And anything you do pretty much gets recorded. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to scale the fork up, and I can tweak the fork as well, which is a group. I go right inside of it, and I can make it glow a little bit like this, and maybe change
Holy fork
to glowing red.
Sure.
And we can stop recording. And so what that means is if I wire this detected up to this keyframe, let me jump into play mode. As I walk up to the fork will get bigger and glow, which is really useful because you can, like the keyframe, you could affect a whole bunch of things at the same time. Instead of having to set up loads of wires and lots of different bits of logic, it's often useful because you can do multiple things with it. What it can also do is if you tweak the keyframe itself, it has some smoothing values in here. So you can smooth up, because that fork just got instantly big, right? So what we can do is we can just put a bit of smoothing. So we can say take about 2 seconds to get big and glowy, and about 2 seconds to stop being big and glowy when you walk away. And then it's nice and smooth.
Nice.
And that's just using like 2 gadgets. So it's really good. You can imagine that being a door opening. Like it's really good if you're making a sliding door, or even one that twists open, because it will remember all the positions and everything.
That's
so
really
it's
cool.
Really, really useful for that. Trigger zones, keyframes, they are your friends. But let's think. We may want to do something else as well. So let me think. How about when you're pressing square while in the trigger zone, the fork gets bigger, because some people are like wondering how you make certain AND conditions. So inside the puppet, if you scope into it with L1 and X, or triangle and X on the move controllers, there's the puppet logic here, and you can scope into that, and we've got all the logic inside the puppet, and then one of them is the controller logic. And here, this is the controller sensor, which is getting all the information from your DualShock to tell the game what to do. In this case, it's telling the puppet what to do, because we can see here we've got the motion sensor and left stick, which is going into here, and the X button, which is going into jump. Incidentally, if you didn't want the puppet to jump, you could just delete that, and now the puppet wouldn't jump because it's got no signal going into it. Okay, but what we wanted was when you pressed square, so let's find a square, there's the square, we want the keyframe to work. So all we need to do is get.
And you can use the keyframes on timelines as well.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes, we will. We should show that, actually. That's a good idea. So if we go up to our gadgets here, oops, I'm really close to one gadget, so something strange happened. We can get out an AND gate, and you can put these on microchips to neaten it all up. I'm just kind of throwing it in the world to show you. And what an AND gate does is it requires both of these input ports here, or more, because you can add more, to be active until the signal comes out. It effectively takes the minimum value that goes into here.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is that wire that usually goes up into that keyframe, instead of coming straight from there and going to the keyframe, I'm going to put it into here first, and here. So it requires the trigger zone and square.
Right,
Like read it
okay,
a bit
cool.
like you're reading English, you know.
Yeah.
Trigger zone and square. And so now when I go into play mode, I can run over to the fork and nothing will happen. But if I press square,
Boom.
then it works. So that's a really good
Cool.
way. Imagine you went up to a door and it had press square, to open. In fact, let's make this fork into a door just to sort of show
why
that.
not?
So
Sure. Cool.
close all these wires down. So what I will do is I'm going to flip it upside down to make it like a portcullis. I'm going to, and here's a really good pro tip, if you click on a keyframe, it shows what it keyframed. You can actually press triangle on that, a bit like we did to reset earlier, and it actually turns off the animation that was recorded for that particular item.
Right.
So we can go and we can also do that if we... No, we can't. Okay, we still want it to glow red though. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just
Naturally.
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't it?
raise it up like that. So that's going to be the door opening when we press square. And we want a bit of text to appear saying press square to open, of course. So if we head over to gadgets again, one of our gadgets is a text displayer here. Put that down and we can type in anything we want. So let's do press square.
Freeze.
Oh, damn it.
Testing your typing skills.
It's really bad. Here we go to... I used to be good at this at one point.
You're fine. You're fine, John. Fine.
There we go. Press square to open. And so that's appeared here. Now you can move that and it appears in the screen any way you want. You can change the colours of it. You can change all the backgrounds. You know, it's really nice. But I'll let you fiddle with all the interesting fun bits later. And what we're going to say... I'm just going to wire the trigger zone into that, not the AND gate, because we just want that to appear as soon as you get into the trigger zone.
Yeah.
So you got a character, walk over, and it says press square to open. We press square, and it opens, and through we go. So that doesn't require much.
Yeah.
You know, there's not many gadgets in to do that, but you can imagine now how you can expand this out to make levels. It's really great.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
Logic is my favourite thing.
You enjoy
so many cool
a bit
things.
of logic.
Has anyone asked for a specific type of logic request out there? I can imagine.
Have a look. See if you got any requests.
I'm going to show you how to make special effects as well, because I really like special effects. And fireworks is one of my favourite ones to do. And I've done this a few times, I think, but it's really fun. Is you go into paint mode and just draw a stroke like this. And in fact, if you want to be extra fancy, go here and put the pen instead of the brush. And that means the harder I press R2, or the less hard I press R2, the thinner the stroke. So you can have thin or thick. And it means I can start thick and then get thin. And it's a bit like the firework trail fading off. All you've got to do is draw one single stroke to begin with. And you leave by scoping out with L1 and circle. And you can tweak it.
Someone asked if you can make your wires more neat, John.
Oh, yes.
I like to feel that they were specifically criticizing your work.
Oh, God.
Because yes, you can.
Making wires neat is like just basically what I spend most of my life doing. It's really important that you do that. So, yes, I will do that in a second and show you how you can do that, because that's a really good thing. So what I'm doing here is I've duplicated...
I think you get shamed on every
I do.
Yeah, somehow.
I do.
Spooning.
Sorry, John, you're such a good sport.
That's okay. I've increased the animation speed here and set it to be a pulse. And so what happens is it's now going to pulse out. But we want that to not loop. So it only happens when time plays at the moment.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it wouldn't be a firework.
Make it bright and glowy.
It was nice and glowy, yeah. So there we go. Got a nice firework. It's pretty cool. And you can change the speed until you're happy. You can even go over to here and add a tiny bit of gravity, so it flops down like that. There we go. Nice looking firework there. Okay. And once you do that, sometimes you'll notice your firework disappears. So another pro tip, use the show hide here and preview invisibility, and then it will come back so you can see where it is. And what we want to do in this case is emit it using one of our gadgets called an emitter. So here's an emitter, and you can stick that in the world, and we can tweak that. And in here there's a whole bunch of cool options.
I love this gadget.
What I'm going to do is leave it on continuous and emit every 1 second, which is its default. And I'm going to say recycle, which means it will keep emitting. It won't just get to 20 and then stop.
Yeah.
And then you can choose the thing to emit in your world by clicking X on that, clicking on the thing. And so now what happens is if we press play, we turn around with the character, we've got a firework going off every second there.
It's a really nice firework.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And you can carry on tweaking this afterwards, and it will be reflected. So if I make it brighter here, you will notice when I go back into play mode, it automatically updates the emitted object, which is really handy for speeding up workflow. Like a lot of emitters could be referencing the same object, which is really, really great.
Yeah. Cool.
And we can even use an animation to animate that firework getting emitted around. So if we get an action recorder down, and it's now recording, it's a bit like a keyframe, except it records live as you're doing it, not just like one at a time. And what I'm going to do is tweak the emitter, and I'm just going to grab it and move around its emit position like this,
so cool.
Just randomly, however I feel fit. And it now means we're going to have like a nice random firework display.
Really nice.
Yeah.
All right, now clean up your logic.
Clean up my logic. Okay, so obviously all my logic here is an utter disgrace. I feel ashamed. I'm sorry. I'm going to tidy it up using a microchip, and it's really important, I find, to keep your logic nice and tidy, because after a while, you can see even only with a few gadgets, it's already starting to look a little bit messy. So good practices to get into is use a microchip. Whenever you put a microchip down, name it straight away. Don't leave it and think I'll name it later, because you don't, and then you forget what's in there. So I'm just gonna call this firework. I would call it like firework and door or something like that. Be as descriptive as you want.
Firework makes sense. Nice and clear.
Give it a nice color. Give it like a little firework icon there, and then open it up. And you open it up by scoping into it, and then you can place all your gadgets onto here. What's cool, a little thing that some people may not know, is when you move an emitter around, it moves like where the thing's going to emit from.
Okay.
But if you drag it onto a microchip, it retains its position. You saw as I moved onto it.
Right.
It's cleverly
back.
That happens with a few things like trigger zones and stuff like that. It's just like a handy little thing to try and help you out. And then I'm going to get all these bits over here, put those on like that. Okay. This is already starting to look a little bit neater. And you can expand your canvas, and then we can start lining things up to make sense. I try and I get super OCD. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And you can then,
if you like neat wires, then
I do like neat wires.
Yeah. Now we've made like a nice fork that glows, turns red, and is a door, and also fireworks for someone to use. As you might need for your game.
If you press X on a wire, it will bring up a node as well. So that's really good for routing your wires. Imagine if this was on the other side here. It's really good for being able to move it around and avoid. So it keeps your wires nice and readable.
Yeah.
So that's the way I like to keep my logic nice and neat.
That looks really nice. It's much better.
I really like it.
Martha Stewart of Wire.
Thanks.
Marie Kondo, is that like the more
she's more relevant
organization?
Yeah. Also, pro tip: turn on stay upright. Go to your firework thing here, and save its position. And that's really important because it means that every time you open it up, it opens in exactly the same place. And that becomes more important later when there's like microchips on microchips, and then you always want them to open up nicely in the same place, so they don't overlap on top of each other. So when you close it down, it opens up over here. If it wasn't ticked on, it would do this. You're like, it's a mess. So make sure you save your locations. you name them and neaten up your microchips, because it will save you so much. I can't stress it will save you so much time.
I really think that John should do like the organization of wires show, just a stream,
a couple of hours,
20 minutes each week. Okay, a couple hours, just organizing wires.
People just ask you to go into their dreams, and like maybe there'll be people in dreams who are just asked to tidy up wires.
It's like a service.
That's
it's like the John Beach
role.
tidy up the wire service, which I really like. You'll notice if you look in any of our stuff that we've remixed, we have some rules which are wires going left to right, forward are at 45 degrees, and one's going backwards are at 90 degrees. But you don't have to follow that. It's just what I like to do to show whether a wire's going forwards or backwards.
Thanks, John.
So there we go. That is some nice little logic tips for you out there.
We are out of time, and thank you for joining us on the stream. Just to recap the stuff about beta, we have sent out EU codes. We will be sending out another batch of EU codes on Monday. We're going to try to get as many people as we can into the beta. Just bear with us. US codes are going out at 1 p.m. Pacific. So you do the time zone math.
Please.
And Sony is sending them out. They will not come from us. Please check your spam folders. If you use Gmail, check your promotions folders. They do get lost in there sometimes. But you don't need to contact us directly about it, because we can't help. We hope to see more of you in the beta. We'll have more information about when those codes are going out on Monday, and any future beta stuff on our social channels, so check there. And thanks for joining us. We'll try to get to more of your questions. John has been really active on our feedback forums, so he's trying to pay attention to all the different things that you're asking, so we can work some of it into these streams. And we'll be back next week with another stream showing off more of your amazing beta stuff. So, and also, we'll publish this one here.
We need to release that. Also, today is Danny Barbara's birthday. The guy who founded Dream Bubble. So happy birthday. Everyone say happy birthday to Danny.
Join Dream Bubble, which is our biggest community fan site. Join the forums there. He's great. They're great. And thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next week, Friday, 5 p.m. GMT, as always.
Good, strong time zone.
Strong time zone. I just have so many time zones. I'm like, cool.
Thank you, guys. Bye.